right, thank you.
Right now.
Okay, nobody touch anything.
But then when the students are there, and that's why.
Yeah, it crashes. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So,
Those are other things. And then hers, I mean, doesn't cover just so that it's like, yeah, you guys want to look at it, you look at it, you know.
I'll have a couple of questions.
Hmm?
My process will be very short.
I mean, if it makes you feel any better, my direct's probably also gonna be.
I'm all right.
I think you know exactly where I'm going with my process.
Don't think yesterday?
Daniel
Mm,
Haynes.
how long are you all asking for opening statements? 5 minutes?
Ops.
Yeah, probably maybe 10, but then just tell me when 5 minutes are up and I'll know to cut it.
You know, Jefferson Moore, I don't know if you know this or not, when he asked my last trial I did and when he was in Impact. He goes, I don't give times for openings or closings anymore. He goes, right, I found out, when I give them a time, they try to use it all up. And the state asked for a certain amount of time. He goes, okay, I'll just kind of keep that in mind, but I'm not gonna give a time. And when we both sat down after no times, I was under like about 10 minutes what he would have given me, and the state was under like about 5 minutes. Because they always go shorter than that because they feel when you give them a time, they feel like they have to use it all.
Well, see, you know what I've learned here? When I don't give
Detective
people a
Hernandez.
time, then it turns into like 2 hours.
This is Detective Hernandez. It's just all muted, just everybody kind of standing around
Oh, Mr. Cox.
and then just her
Okay.
grabbing stuff.
All right, so what are we doing with Mr. Yost?
Okay, yeah, as long as when she's emptying that one part out, you can see her full. He's not gonna be here. So we're good.
Which one are you talking about?
What she's in the trunk, it's the stuff's at the back of her trunk.
Oh, when she's doing the presumptive?
Yeah, right before then, yeah, she pulls out the
All
marijuana.
right,
No, so
Can
all it
you-
is it's
if you
her
don't mind if you could
with
get
the
the
stuff in her
court
hand.
reporter
She's
out here,
approaching the
please.
car. She
They're
pops
right
the
in the
trunk and
back.
puts it down.
Okay.
And I'll take that up.
I think that's her popping it. It's kind of funny that it doesn't just have a button, but whatever. And just,
Okay,
there we go. Can't even really tell anything.
okay.
Oh, the other thing I wanted to cover, we did, so Hernandez has the drugs, but we did have another officer come in and Sotelo, where the goal is just gonna be.
Your linkages,
What? What's that? No, he's the one that just put everything in there. And he's the one that just initialed everything.
that's what I'm saying, your linkage.
Yeah.
Linkage, and then you're gonna get number 9.
Yeah, so just giving you a heads up that he's coming in, no body cam on him, we're not trying to do anything
Right.
crazy.
Mr. Yost, come on down. Come down.
Yeah, no, and that was confusing. to me too,
And I
but
got a question too. I want to know if you know. One was a lady and one was a dude.
Yeah, no, ours is the guy.
Okay, who?
Oh, go ahead.
Right.
Okay, I wanted to make
Yeah, no,
sure.
it's really, yeah. That, I want to say that was written by Sotelo. That was my understanding.
Because all I had was the recovering officer, never who wrote it.
Mr. Cox.
Right, and
you
I
follow
think
most
he did,
right
and
now?
Debbie uploaded the e-discovery. It was a, I'm sorry, I thought they were on the record. He had written like another report.
That's okay, that's either yes or no.
Because I pulled off of this.
Okay. All right, can I see a B page? Okay, no, I understand. And you have no objection to proceeding with an oral motion to set bond?
It's like, hey, we didn't know we were gonna have to call you, so how do we do this?
All right, court is calling 2020 CR 9647, State of Texas versus Jonathan Yost. Now parties announced for the record for the state.
Richard Getter for the state.
Are you Mr. Yost?
That was it.
All right, defense, you're requesting a bond?
Yes, Your Honor, by law, he's entitled to mine.
If you want, we can invoke the rule and then just tell me.
From memory, I don't know if you're ready for me. Can I speak it?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh, you know, I told him marijuana, cocaine,
there was a
unless the door gets open for some reason, I doubt you.
farm forfeiture on.
No.
Mhm. That was on July 10th, I believe.
Yes, ma'am. I'll say. And
The only
The only
thing
thing
is,
from
I
my
may ask
recollection,
one of the
Judge,
detectives, and
I
I'll
know
approach
that,
before I ask anything about that specifically.
Mine had
But I may ask, did it become back stolen? And that's it. That's it.
COVID restrictions. I was doing.
Well,
the
that's why I
time
was gonna approach.
of COVID. And I believe that my presentation report at that time was that the only thing that he had COVID and could not travel. And I believe, if the memory serves correctly, that was the, at the. My position, Judge, is that, that was gonna be the third.
They pulled them over. because
Those that,
There was that.
back in that time, there
People,
was
getting out
COVID
that I had,
restrictions, and you
not
go
really
back,
that much to do.
found the spent at
At
that point at $30,000.
All right, and defense? I'm sorry, state, you're
Your Honor,
on,
I'm
throwing me
asking,
off with
that
your
the court
locations.
sets the bond much higher. Just to give a specific number, I want to offer $500,000, and I want to explain to the court why. The court has to consider in the setting of the bond, of course, Mr. Yo's connections to the city, the idea that he might be a flight risk.
I get it, and I understand. I just
I
want
want
to
to provide the court with
I told them
exhibits to
not to
indicate,
mention it, so I'm sure they get the okay.
both that Yost is a danger to the community, that he's a high flight risk, and that he has lied to the
I
court.
was trying to remember, so the groups that I've had, you know, I kind of say them.
Yes,
And I need to offer you a magnifying glass with this one.
thank you.
So I
It's
mentioned
exhibit
that to them,
5.
and I'll go over that again. It's a warrant thing, and we did have one.
Any objections?
Well,
It's
only in terms of
One of the reasons
rather
I
see
gave
if
it
they
to
can show the
Advantage.
actual connection of my client in that activity. I mean,
Right.
they can make that connection, sir. Which has to be.
So the rules of evidence don't apply in this hearing, though I will say this exhibit does have Mr. Yost's name throughout it.
Just to make sure we don't lose it.
Imagine more than one person named, this is your.
All right, objection will be overruled. What exhibit number?
This is State's Exhibit 5, Your Honor.
All right, state's exhibit number 5 is
This
admitted.
is a list of every hotel that Mr. Yost has stayed at since September of 2021. It's approximately 2 months after his FTA. If he was really concerned with COVID, he sure did a lot of traveling afterwards. And as you can see, this evidence indicates, one, that he doesn't reside in Hawaii, or at least he hasn't for a period of time, like was indicated to this court that he did. And 2, he must be able to afford a pretty high bond if he can afford all these hotel stays. And 3, I believe he is being, excuse me for being so forward, disingenuous when he represents to the court that he had an issue with COVID. He has no issue at all with traveling, it seems. And that is why I want to next draw the court's attention to
And thank you for the magnifying glass.
oh, when you do these financial crimes, all these records are so tiny frequently, you've got to give them. Or else you'll never be able to see anything. I will say the first 3 pages are primarily what's there. After the 3rd page, you'll see a line going through them, and then it becomes duplicative after that.
All right, thank you.
Those just indicate the rewards points that he's earned at the Marriott since then. You'll remember that during COVID, we were holding Zoom hearings for Mr. Yost, and he was appearing by Zoom and representing to the court what his address would be, which would be used by the court to send him notifications of those hearings via certified mail. I just want to remind the court, and this is also listed in my 404 motion, that at that time, Mr. Yost indicated to the court that he lived in Hawaii. He gave the court an address that I will proffer to you was not an address that he lived at. The Secret Service actually went to that address, and there was no apartment number by the number he gave. I believe the address he gave you was 411 Harbor Lane. And in fact, that's still the address that's listed in his paperwork. So he was dishonest with the court about his location, is what I'm asserting in this hearing back then. I also want to offer, for the court's understanding, State's Exhibit 2. This is an offense report from the Hawaii Attorney General's office indicating an investigation being done by Mr. Host where he defrauded a numerous people in what I think was popularly called at that time, either the Ocean Rescue scam or the Baywatch scam. I get them mixed up. But the Attorney General's office appears to have some interest in Mr. Yost, or at least it will in the future.
What I'm saying, Judge, my suggestion that if he's a person of interest for the Baywatch scam, whatever that is, I've watched Baywatch in the past.
Well, I see in this document, ABC is mentioned, the ABC channel.
Okay, so in my position on that, Judge, is that just being a personal of interest, it's not like he been convicted of something.
All right, so State's Exhibit number 2 will be accepted for this hearing.
Yes, just for the purposes of this hearing. And this occurred in May and June of 2020, so he would have been, I believe, on bond.
Have you had a chance to review?
These documents have been in e-discovery now for about 2 years. I also provided them to Mr. Cox yesterday.
Oh, those ones from yesterday.
All right, and so this one is the Baywatch TV series. Okay,
Or an Ocean Rescue, I get it mixed up.
That was.
well, this is one where it's alleged that your client was trying to sell the Baywatch series titled as Ocean Rescue and trying to sell a script to Lopez. I mean, your client was trying to sell a script to Netflix and or ABC and stating that the pilot had been purchased. You know,
The ultimate underlying offense there is Mr. Yost. Well, he did many things. There's actually multiple victims listed throughout the report. The Silver Sands Hotel, for example, where he stayed and then committed theft of service by not paying. The bicycle shop owner who he hired and then didn't pay. And the numerous actors, actresses, and other, I guess what you would say, people who are interested in ultimately becoming famous in and around Hollywood were asked to participate in the filming of a pilot. But ultimately what really happened is that what happens in all of these cases is that Yost just flees with the money. So it's kind of a long and sordid story. And unfortunately, that's only one of a few exhibits I'm going to hand you that have happened nationwide concerning Mr. Yost.
all right,
And I think Judge Bob, there's a lot of conjectures. There's a lot of assumption, I mean, that you have to make that, well, this is the same person. He's identified as the same person. Even when you talk about, oh, you have somebody that may have purchased a room at a certain location. That's not even to say that he was the person that even occupied the room.
Well, I can offer States Exhibit 6, which is a collection of news stories that have Yost's face on it, where he's also implicated in these stories that I'm providing supporting documentation for.
And for that, with today's technology, hey,
AI.
you can put me at the on Olympics or at Sphinx in Egypt. I'm there, big people impose. So that, Judge, is that we're talking about a copy of a copy of a copy, Judge.
I believe that's a scam from North Carolina or South Carolina where a church was defrauded. I've spoken to the detective in that case.
All right, so
And that, to be fair, that happened before he was on bond for this case.
thank you.
Has a bearing.
So State's Exhibit number 6 is admitted.
I also want to offer, gosh, can I just offer them all? rather
Yes,
than-
sure.
Okay. I'm going to offer States Exhibit 3, which is a copy of the LAPD incident report that ultimately led to his arrest from which he was extradited from Los Angeles to here. I'm going to offer States Exhibit 4. This is the Long Beach Police Department arrest report from when he was arrested. So the charge, he came on the radar in Los Angeles. He was ultimately arrested in Long Beach. I'm going to offer States Exhibit 7. This is a report from the San Diego Police Department where he's alleged to have defrauded a woman out of $15,000. This, I believe, happened between October and December of last year, so fairly recently. And I would like to proffer to the court that Mr. Yost, at least according to that report, should have at least that much money to pay his bond, along with other money that I'm aware he has come into in the recent months. I also want to offer, of course, States Exhibit 1, which is the offense report for this case.
All right,
As well. Those are all of my exhibits, Your Honor.
State's Exhibit 1, 3, 4, and 7 are admitted. All right. And the court will hear argument. Defense, I know you've made your argument. It's your motion, so I'll give the chance for the state to make an argument and then I'll let you close.
Thank you. Your Honor, when Mr. Yost bonds out on this case, he will disappear and it will be years before he's found again. I'm certain of that. Now, he is entitled to a bond, but this court does have to consider the risks in setting this bond. Mr. Yost is a danger to this community, to the community at large in this country. And he has lied to this court consecutively I think in 2 different hearings and hearings.
So I'm just getting the.
He's simply not
body
trustworthy,
cam.
and I asked that the
So
court
here's
set a
Nieto, so you
bond
just
to
signed that one.
reflect
That's it. That
his
should be good to
behavior and
go.
the decisions in this respect.
So I'm reading in
All
here.
right, and state, what are you asking for in the amount of bond?
$100,000.
All right, defense, what are you asking for in the amount of bond?
Okay. Lento, Nieto's program. So we just need to put a sticker. Nice little sticker on it. And then here's his report.
All right, the court is going to order a full GPS. The court will waive fees.
Short,
Court will set your bond at 600,000.
short.
Ms. Ferguson, I need a jury trial date for Mr. Yost as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean.
600,000. I just want to make sure I heard it correct.
600, comma, 00, period, 00.
We have,
Nieto's
we
right
have
here.
3 out-of-state witnesses for punishment.
And
We have
then,
both the rest of them.
is there anything else I'm missing?
Counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's like both got a light on it.
Oh, I like that. It has a light.
Forgot mine.
And if you all will talk with Ms. Ferguson about a jury trial setting, and Ms. Ferguson, if you'll give Mr. Yost a reset form, so he'll know when to be there.
Yeah. Just gonna do that one.
All right, and Ms. Efron, with regards, have you finished with the paperwork?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm so sorry.
no, we're gonna take this up, then we bring, is the jury all here?
Yeah.
All right.
It's been on that. Position.
Yes.
When his defense attorney asked the question.
Does he work?
Yeah.
And he's like, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding?
Yeah, no, that's what he did, and I'm like, I can see this.
I was like, there's no further questions. I was like, no matter what, if you, I knew you were, I was like, you're probably not gonna hand it off to me. So I was like, if you say state, do you have anything? He's like, nope, that's it.
That's it, that's it.
Yeah.
It took a lot of effort to not start.
Yeah.
I really had to try and just control it to keep it, but I just want, that was one of the funnest things.
Guadalupe Gutierrez. Background. That's down and up. Sit down. Thank you. Never.
No. All right, July 11th, okay. Then, and then we're gonna do this plea, and then after we do this plea, we're bringing the jury in. And can I see the file back on Mr. Yost so I can write in there that it's July 11th, please? Thank you. All right, if I could see the parties on Guadalupe Gutierrez, please. And this is for Deferred. Court is calling 2023 CR 1012, State of Texas versus Guadalupe Gutierrez. Can I have parties announced for the record for the state?
Lindsay Shaw for the state.
Defense?
Rainy Friday.
And are you Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes, ma'am.
Counsel, have you received all the discovery in this case and did you review it with your client? Court will find that the state is in compliance with discovery. Mr. Gutierrez, I'm showing you what's entitled application for deferred adjudication or community supervision. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it and did you sign it?
Yes, ma'am.
Showing you the true bill of indictment. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it? Counsel, do you waive the reading of the indictment?
Yes, Your Honor.
State, are you proceeding on the indictment as presented?
No, Your Honor, the state's proceeding on the lesser included offense of deadly conduct firearm.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Going to show you what's entitled court admonishments and defendants waivers and affidavit of admonitions. Did you review that document with your attorney? Did you understand it? Did you sign it in all the appropriate places?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you understand the state is proceeding on the lesser included offense of deadly conduct firearm is third-degree felony? The range of punishment is anywhere from 2 to 10 years in prison and up to $10,000 fine. If you have a plea bargain agreement with the state, the court does not have to follow your plea. If for any reason the court doesn't follow your plea and gives you more than you bargained for, the fact that you entered a plea will not be used against you and you will be allowed to withdraw your plea. Did you understand? Did you understand you have a right to jury trial, a right for you or your attorney to cross-examine and confront any witnesses the state would call and the right to remain silent? Did you understand by entering this plea bargain agreement, you were giving up those rights?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you intend to give up those rights and enter into a plea in this case? Did you understand if the court were to grant your application for deferred adjudication, if for any reason your deferred adjudication were revoked, court could find you guilty, sentence you up to 10 years in prison and up to a $10,000 fine?
Yes,
Counsel, has your client been able to provide you with any defenses?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you believe he has a rational as well as a factual understanding of the charges against him?
Yes.
Do you believe he's currently competent and was legally sane at the time of the offense?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Gutierrez, has anyone threatened you, coerced you, or placed you in fear to get you to enter this plea?
No, ma'am.
Has anyone promised you anything other than the plea?
No.
Are you satisfied with the way you've been represented?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes, ma'am.
Court will find that defendant has knowingly and voluntarily waived his right to jury trial, showing you the plea bargain page. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it?
Yes.
According to the plea, state is proceeding on the lesser included offense of deadly conduct firearm. Punishment is to be assessed at a cap of 10 years in the prison. The state will remain silent on your application. And there's to be no contact with Eric Fields or Lefties, Lefty apostrophe S Draft House. Did you understand that to be the plea?
Yes, ma'am.
Defense?
Yes.
State?
Yes,
Showing you the paragraph entitled waiver of appeal paragraph. Did you review that paragraph with your attorney? Did you understand it? And did you sign it in both places? Did you understand by signing that you're waiving your right to appeal? The only items that can be appealed are written pretrial motions that have been filed, heard, and ruled upon by the court. Did you understand? Counsel, are there many such motions?
No, Your Honor.
Then to the lesser included offense, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest? State any evidence?
State off the state's exhibit 1 and all attached.
Any objection? You may continue. Showing you what's entitled waiver and consent to stipulation of testimony and stipulations. Did you review that document with your attorney? Did you understand it? Did you sign it in all the appropriate places? Again, did you understand you have a right to jury trial, a right for you or your attorney to cross-examine and confront any witnesses the state would call in the right to remain silent? Did you understand that today the state will be presenting evidence in the form of witnesses' statements and police reports, but most importantly, there will be no live testimony? Did you understand?
Yes.
Court will find that defendant has knowingly and voluntarily waived and consented to stipulation of testimony and stipulations. Court will accept into evidence states exhibits 1 and attachments, and the court will review the same. All right, after reviewing states exhibits 1 and attachments, the court will find there's sufficient evidence to find you guilty. Court will defer finding of guilt as you've applied for deferred adjudication. We will come back on June 15th. At that time, I'll make a decision on your application. It'll be based upon the PSI report I receive and any other evidence that's presented. Do you understand? All right, thank you.
Your Honor, he's come partial expressed and in compliance. This, confer with the state, they don't oppose it tracking only. What would allow it's because he has a child that he helps to care for and pick up and stuff. So,
All right, it'd be best if you take that up to Miss with Judge Nahara. He's in 379 because we're about to start a jury trial. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Eduardo Guerrero. And Deputy Laura, oh, whenever they come back, if you could line them up and we'll take that up. All right, is this family violence? Okay. So where are we on this recall May 18th state heard witness by phone? What's this about? That's what's in the docket.
Yes, we spoke to him last time, the state.
All right, I'm gonna recall this for tomorrow and your client will need to be here. And an offer will need to be tendered at that time. So you'll have to come back tomorrow. On Mr. Eduardo Guardo.
And just judge all the state can ask for more time. We were planning on watching the video. There's just more evidence to give multiple statements.
Okay, so how much time are you asking for?
2 weeks, just to make sure.
All right, Ms. Fergus, can you recall Mr. Guardo in 2 weeks? All right, we're gonna come back on June 1st. At that time, the state needs to be prepared to make an offer.
Sorry about that, Judge. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. All righty. And then we're ready. Court is calling 2022 CR 8529, State of Texas versus Melvin Todd Jones. Now parties announced for the record for the state
Daniel Escobar and Lindsay Shaw for the state.
defense.
Robert Porter for Mr. Jones, we're ready.
All right, state, are you ready?
Yes, Your Honor, we're ready.
All right, so we are just going to have the jurors come in. My understanding, all the jurors are present. So just give us a moment to do that.
And Judge, if I can, just really quickly on the record, so there was a disclosure that I found that I did provide to Mr. Porter. It's not for an officer that we're calling, it's for another report that was taken that we're not digging into. I just wanted to make sure.
State, I'm sorry, defense.
No, that's correct, Judge.
All right.
In a quick spot, so I can do a little video or you got.
Oh, yeah. I'll switch you.
Cops that was out there got in trouble.
No, I'm-
Shit.
no, it's gonna-
Got the shirt on, body camera on.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just do that.
No, you can wonder. Nothing but support.
Then Norma, I'll talk to you about the things that are remaining.
It's a little long, but. Question.
Thank you. Nervous. Are you gonna read the indictment?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. You're ready.
All right, for the jury.
All right, oh, please be seated. We're standing for you. All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you were given an oath downstairs, but I'm going to give you an oath as it relates to this specific case. So if you could please raise your right hands for me. Do each of you solemnly swear or affirm in the case of the state of Texas versus Melvin Jones, you will a true verdict render according to the law and the evidence. So help you God. All right, you can lower your hand. State.
True bill of indictment. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, the grand jury of Bexar County, state of Texas, duly organized and paneled and sworn as such at the July term AD 2022 of the 437th Judicial District Court of said county in said court at said term do present in and to said court that in the county and state aforesaid and anterior to the presentment of this indictment, count one, on or about the 20th day of June 2022, Melvin Jones did intentionally and knowingly possess a controlled substance, namely methamphetamine, which by aggregate weight, including any adulterants and dilutants, was of an amount 4 grams or more, but less than 200 grams, against the peace and dignity of the state, signed by the foreman of the grand jury.
All right, Mr. Jones, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
State, do you have opening statements?
Oh, we do, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Back in June of 2022, SAPD were taking part in it was a covert unit. They were taking part in a sting trying to find stolen vehicles on a hotspot area of San Antonio. Unrelated to that, one of the sergeants, Sergeant Jordan, you can hear from him, he was at a Valera parking lot observing the motel. Completely unrelated, the defendant drove into that convenience store without a front or rear license plate. How strange. You're going to hear from Sergeant Jordan. He's going to mention that that is a possible sign that this could have been a stolen vehicle. Sergeant Jordan then starts to look at the defendant, not recording, not thinking of anything. He's just taking a look. He sees the defendant and one of his passengers enter a convenience store, and the defendant's carrying a green army bag. Now, what happens with these covert units is that SAPD will send out patrol units with them. And their job is to, if someone needs to be pulled over or stopped, their job is to do it. They're the plainclothes officers so that someone doesn't think it's just random people in street clothes stopping them. They stop the defendant and they take him out of the vehicle. You see, it's officer, you're gonna hear from Officer Nieto. He was one of the officers in the patrol car that stopped the defendant's vehicle. Now, when they make this stop, they get him out and detain him. Now, again, going back to Sergeant Jordan, he takes a look into the vehicle, and one of the very first things he sees is he sees drugs right there in between where the driver door frame and the seat is. You're going to see a bottom pan, you're going to see it on there. Now, from there, they then begin to search the rest of the vehicle. Going back to that green army bag, they take a look at it because they saw the defendant carrying it, and inside, more methamphetamine. From there, you're going to hear from Detective Hernandez. She was also part of this covert unit, that was doing surveillance on the motel. And from there, she's the one that takes a look at the drugs and just catalogs where they're at. From there, you're going to hear from Officer Sotelo. He was the officer that put the drugs in the empty. And then from there, you're going to hear from the defendants that conducted tests on both the pieces of drugs that were found. Both of them were positive for methamphetamine. Again, all we are here to do is just present a straightforward case. Completely unrelated from what they were doing. Just that Sergeant Jordan was just on the lookout. Just noticed that. That's what it led to being here today. We're asking that you take a listen to all the evidence, make sure to pay attention. We're asking, we will ask you to just make the best decision that you can. Thank you.
All right, defense, any opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Thank y'all for being here again today. At the end of this trial, it's going to be not guilty simply because of the burden of proof. Everything the state has said is true, but you're going to need to understand a couple of things. The position of people in the car, and then the assumptions that are made by the police officers. Mr. Jones was driving that vehicle that day. You're going to hear that there was a lady by the name of Priscilla that was a back passenger in that car, and he had a front passenger also in that car. Officers did see Mr. Jones. Well, let me put it this way. we're gonna have to take their word for it that they saw Mr. Jones carrying the backpack, because there's gonna be no evidence at all that he was carrying the backpack, because there's gonna be no video footage from the convenience store or the cops at that place. Assuming we take their word that he was carrying a backpack. Problem is, there's gonna be no evidence to show that it was his backpack. So we're gonna hear about assumptions that because he was carrying a backpack, therefore he was in possession of everything that was in that backpack. Also, you can hear assumptions that the drugs that Officer Jordan saw in the car right there is because it was near the driver. The assumption is gonna be, well, it was his drugs. But when we look at the totality of the circumstances and our law and what it stands for, the only just verdict in this case is gonna be a die.
All right, state, call your first witness.
The state calls Officer Nieto.
All right, if you'll have a seat here, please. All right, can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, you can lower your hand, have a seat. Just make sure you keep your voice up so the court reporter can hear and the jurors can hear. If you'll state your name for the record and spell it, please.
Hello, I'm Officer Nieto, and as of November, IETO.
All right, state.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Officer Nieto.
Good afternoon.
Officer Nieto, can you introduce yourself to the jury and tell them how you are employed?
Yes, Officer Nieto, been employed with San Antonio Police Department for 13 years now.
Okay, and so are you a certified peace officer?
Yes, ma'am.
And so when you joined the SAPD, did you have to go through any type of training beforehand?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you talk about what kind of training you received?
Goodness, just physical fitness training, education on Texas law.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
how long is that training?
8 months.
Okay. And so you said you've been with SAPD in total 13 years now.
Yes, ma'am.
And so what do you currently do for SAPD?
Currently, I'm uniform presence for the covert unit.
Okay.
So I do work with covert detectives who are plainclothes, and I'm the uniform presence in a
Okay.
marked police vehicle.
And what is the importance of having a uniformed police officer with an undercover or covert detective?
Pretty much, it helps, I guess, others identify that, people in plain clothes are police officers.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that?
The unit's been in existence going on 1 year. So 1 year, ma'am.
Okay. So were you a part of this unit then on June 21st of 2022?
Yes, correct.
And when you joined this unit, did you receive any additional type of training or anything like that?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of training was that?
Just tactics training. I was also with the gang unit for several years, which converted into street crimes unit. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
So a lot of tactics training. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So I want to direct your attention back to June 21st of 2022, where you were on duty that day
Yes, ma'am.
and you were a part of this same unit that you've just described.
Correct.
And so while on duty, were you assisting covert detectives on that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what was it that you were doing?
We were working, it was a multi-agency, kind of like joint effort. There was a hotel across the way that we had other agencies looking at. There's vehicles being parked there.
Judge, non-responsive.
Sustained.
Was there a certain motel that you were?
Judge
Observe.
relevance.
I'll rule off the other question.
Was there a certain part of town that you were working that day?
Yes, ma'am.
And what part of town was that?
It was the east side of town, over off of 90 and Houston.
And why were you working that part of town?
Stolen vehicles were being left there at the Knights Inn Hotel.
Okay. And at some point on June 21st of 2022, did you begin to assist Detective Hernandez and others with a traffic stop?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how is it that you began to assist with that?
There was a vehicle spotted that did not have any license plates, so it could not be identified. So therefore, that was put over the police radio, and we had a surveillance on that vehicle. Vehicle was followed. Of course, communication was put over the police radio. We were able to catch up to the vehicle, and we conducted a traffic stop.
Okay. And on that day, were you riding in your patrol car? Were you partnered? Were you alone or were you partnered with another officer?
I was partnered. It's a two-man vehicle.
Okay. And
My
what's
partner
the,
was driving and I was a front passenger.
and what's the purpose of a two-man vehicle?
Just more police presence. We deal with high crime individuals or high profile individuals, and therefore just police safety, officer safety.
And when this vehicle was first brought to your attention, where were you located?
We were across the street from the Knights Inn. There's a Valero gas station, Stripes Food Mart. We were parked in back.
And why were you parked there? What were you doing?
Once again, we're the uniform presence. So we are wearing a uniform that obviously shows that we're police. We're in a marked police vehicle that says police on it. So therefore, we're having to pretty much just, hide behind that building to conceal ourselves.
Okay. And so then you just testified that you conducted a stop on a car, right? That had no license plates.
Correct.
Okay. When you made visual with or saw this vehicle, did this vehicle commit any other traffic violations? Do you recall?
That was communicated over the police radio that there was a.
Say, Judge.
Sustained.
Okay. I'll move on. So you said that there were no license plates visible.
Correct.
And that's a valid reason to conduct a traffic stop.
Yes, ma'am.
And when a car, and do you recall, did this car have license plates on the front side?
I do not recall. I believe there's no license plates, but
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
And why is that significant to you?
Usually, no. Through my training, my experience, a lot of stolen vehicles do not have license plates.
Okay. And so did you and your partner eventually conduct a traffic stop on this car?
Yes, as we were attempting to catch up to it, we observed its actions to be more elusive. We figured they were eluding from us just because of the turns it was making
Okay.
at a
So-
higher rate of speed.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to ask you about that. And you kind of said, but when you say he was eluding, how long did this eluding go for? Do you recall?
It was short. It was short because they pulled into a driveway.
Okay. Would you say a few blocks, a few minutes?
After it saw us, about half a block.
Okay. And then you said he pulled into a driveway.
Correct.
Were you aware whose driveway this was?
No, ma'am, we were not aware.
And once he pulled into the driveway, what happened?
Once it pulled into the driveway, we conducted that as a felony traffic stop due to the fact that there's a good chance that the vehicle was stolen. So we had to, for officer safety, the way we trained is we conducted a felony stop. We held back to the side of our patrol vehicle to call out the occupants inside the vehicle.
Okay. And so what's the difference in a felony traffic stop and just a regular traffic stop?
Higher risk, higher
Okay.
risk.
And what is the difference in the way that you as an officer approaches a felony traffic stop versus a regular traffic stop?
A regular traffic stop, you'd probably just walk right up to the vehicle or walk right up to the window, as opposed to holding back, taking cover behind your vehicle in case you take oncoming gunfire.
Okay. And is that what you did in this case?
Yes,
And is that what your partner would have done as well?
yes, that's exactly what he did.
And were you able to determine how many people were inside of the vehicle?
No, ma'am.
At some point, did the occupants of the car get out of the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so who got out of the car?
It was the first occupant out of the vehicle was the passenger in back of backseat passenger in back of the driver.
Okay. So on the left-hand back seat side?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that was a female, you said?
It was a female.
And did anyone else get out of the car after that female?
Front passenger, front seat.
Okay. And who was
Yes.
that?
That was another female as
Okay.
well.
And so at that point, once the two females got out of the car, and let me ask you this, they got out of the car on their own, or did you have to
Lady
get them
judge.
out of the car?
That'll be overruled. You can answer.
No, they did not exit the vehicle on their own. We had to call them out.
Okay.
Yeah, there was plenty of time for them to get out on their own. When we initially made the stop, they had to be called out.
Okay. And so then once the females exited the car, was the driver still in the car?
Yes,
And was the driver a male or a female?
male.
And when he was in the car, had you and or your partner instructed him to exit?
Yes,
And he was failing to comply with those orders?
correct.
What was he doing?
He was holding a tablet and with his hands outside the window. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so he was holding a tablet, but he also had his hands outside the window.
Yes.
What was he doing with his hands?
Holding the tablet.
Okay, was he saying anything?
I believe he's saying he was on the phone with the owner of the car.
Yes,
May we approach?
yes. Ladies and gentlemen, have you step outside for a few moments. You've heard some testimony. You're not allowed to start deliberating in your head or thinking about where something is headed. You're not allowed to talk amongst yourself and start deliberating. You're not to do any investigation. Everything that you need to know about this case will come from inside the courtroom. Does everyone understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, everyone, please rise. So you can step outside.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Can we step back there, Judge, or?
Just in one of the side rooms. And let me see if someone could make sure that door is closed. I don't know why it didn't close.
Your Honor, the reason I approached at this point in time, is because there was no notice of any kind of statements or what he said or didn't say, and at what time or he didn't say. I did not do a suppression motion because I didn't know that. My question simply is this, is I wanted to know exactly what he said, when he said it, and how he said it, in case there was a violation of his rights at that point in time.
All right, so then this was what we'll do. I'll bring the officer back in, and outside the presence of the jury, Mr. Porter, if you would like to ask him if your client said anything, and then if defense wishes to have that sustained, because he's entitled to know that beforehand, then he will not be able to testify to that. So if you could have the officer come back in, please.
And just for the court to know, I was anticipating the officer to say no to that. I mean, there's nothing.
I was too, because I didn't have nothing there. That's why I'm.
Trying to make the point of like the defendant wasn't saying.
All right, well, we're going to find out what the officer says, then we will all know.
I was like, wait a minute, but
All right, Mr. Porter, would you like to ask the question?
Yes, Officer Nieto, I just got a few questions.
Yes, sir.
My first one's going to be tailing off of what the state just asked you. She asked you if Mr. Jones said anything to you. What did he tell you?
He said he was on the phone with the owner of the car.
Okay. During your time with Mr. Jones, were there any other statements that he made?
I don't recall.
When he made that statement about, let me ask you this. When he made that statement about being on the phone, at that point in time you approached, you said it was a felony stop. And I'm sorry, long-winded question, but you approached him with a weapon, right?
Yes, correct.
So he was detained at that point in time.
Yes,
Okay. And that is the only statement that you're aware that he made.
yes.
Did you ever hear Mr. Jones speak to any other officers during that time?
I cannot recall that.
Do you know if Mr. Jones spoke to any other officers or detectives during the course of this investigation?
I'm sure he did. I mean, I walked away.
Okay.
I can't really speak on that because I walked away. I don't remember any interaction with him after that.
Okay, so the only statement that you know for sure that you could tell this jury was that he was on the phone with the owner of the vehicle.
Correct.
Okay, nothing else.
No, sir.
That's all I need to know.
All right, thank you. You could step outside for a moment. Are there any other officers who are coming to testify? That are here?
Yeah, we'd like to invoke the rule too, Judge.
Three, Judge.
There are three here?
Yes.
All right. All right, if you'll step down. Can you have each of those officers come in one at a time?
No, not yet.
Yeah, you can.
And just so we don't have to break for the jury, each of the officers that's coming in, if anybody wants to ask whether or not it's alleged that Mr. Jones made a statement, because defense is saying that he hasn't been given notice of any statements by his client.
Any statements this client would have made would have been on the body cam that he has possession of.
Which is exactly right. That's why.
Right.
it didn't.
So I'm sorry, what is your name?
Sergeant Jordan.
So do you need to, excuse me, do y'all need to speak with him outside the presence of the jury to find out if there's any other statement?
I'll just ask him right now. If you don't
All right,
mind.
if you'll take the stand. Can you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you can lower your hand if you'll state your name for the record.
Stephen Jordan.
All right, and what is your profession?
I'm a sergeant with the San Antonio Police Department.
All right, anyone want to ask him questions just specifically about statements that are alleged to have been made by Mr. Jones?
Not from the station.
I'll ask you just a couple
Sure.
of brief questions. Sergeant, you were involved in this incident with the arrest of Mr. Jones, correct?
Correct.
During the whole time you were there, did Mr. Jones make any kind of statements?
Not to me. No, sir.
Okay, so you never heard Mr. Jones say anything.
No, sir.
Are you aware if he made any statements to any other detectives That,
I don't believe so, but I can't say for certain. That I recall, no.
okay. Nothing for the judge.
All right, thank you. And the next one, please. Oh, you can step down.
That's it?
We'll call, they'll call you back in
Oh.
in a moment.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, the rules for me, but I don't know if anyone. I didn't-
Yes, sir. No problem.
Yes. Could you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, if you can lower your hand, have a seat. All right, and if you could state your name for the record.
Ariel Hernandez,
All right, and what is your occupation?
detective.
All right. Anyone wants to ask her a question regarding any statements made by Mr. Jones?
I will, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Detective. Briefly, this will take briefly. Did you partake in the arrest of Mr. Jones on June 22nd of 2022?
Yes,
And during the time that you were in contact with Mr. Jones throughout that period, did he make any statements to you?
no,
They never said anything to you, never recorded anything?
in regards to what?
Anything at all? Was he questioned at all? Did he make any statements to you that you remember?
To me specifically, I don't recall.
Okay. Do you recall Mr. Jones speaking to any officers?
I think initially when the traffic stopped, when they were trying to have him step out of the vehicle.
Okay, but you weren't there at that time.
Yes, I was on the other side behind the cars.
Okay. And so if there were any statements, you wouldn't have been privy to them or heard them.
No, just like I said, just shouting to have him step out of the car.
Okay. Nothing further, Judge.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, one more. Thank you.
Jim? Oh.
All right, if you could raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, you can lower your hand, have a seat if you'll state your name for the record.
Detective Jesus Sotelo.
All right, who wants to ask the question?
Oh, well, Your Honor. Officer Sotelo, were you part of the arrest of Mr. Jones on June 22nd, 2022?
Yes, I was present.
Okay. Now and you were there at the scene?
Yes, sir.
During that time at the scene, are you aware if Mr. Jones made any kind of statements?
Pertaining to,
Any statements at all?
oh, he made several statements.
What were they?
Something about being able to call the owner of the vehicle. I wasn't up close during the arrest, but I remember only that because it was being yelled out the window.
Okay, and that's the only statement you remember him saying?
Yes.
And you don't remember him speaking specifically with any other detectives or officers?
I mean, he could have made statements and anyone could have heard or not heard.
I'm specifically asking you.
I'm only letting you know what I remember from where I was at that time. There was other statements that I don't recall specifically, but
Okay, so the only thing you know is that I want to call the owner of the car?
it wasn't I want to call, it was something regarding speaking with the owner of the vehicle.
Okay.
That was at the very initial part of the stop. Other statements were made at different parts of the contact, but
You just don't know to whom?
no, well, no.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, thank you. You may step down.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we can bring the jurors back, and if you could have the previous witness on the witness stand.
Which is secret.
No, that's fine.
I don't think I figured that out.
Thank you for letting me do that, Your Honor.
No problem. Correct.
All right, jury.
All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, you're still on your oath. State you may continue.
So Officer Nieto, I think before the jury left, you had testified that the defendant had a tablet or in his hand out of the window, right?
Correct.
All right. And when this was happening, were you and your partner behind the car? Where were you located?
We were on the driver's side of the vehicle,
Okay.
on the side of it.
And at this point, was it just you and your partner, or were there other officers present as well?
There was covert detectives who had just arrived to the scene. Yes.
And before the defendant or before the driver exited the car, did you observe him make any type of movements?
We observed a movement inside the car. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what did you observe?
We could just see from behind, from the side view mirror, I could just see bodies moving.
Okay. Do you recall observing the driver make any specific movements?
We saw him move his torso towards the center console.
Okay. And once he was finally out of the car, was he removed out of the car by you or an officer, or did he come out of the car on his own?
From what I recall, he was getting out of the vehicle, but we assisted.
Okay. And once he was out of the car, was he detained? What happened?
At the time, detained. Yes, ma'am.
And so at that point, what would he have been? Why was he detained?
Because of the fact that he's driving a motorized vehicle with no license plates.
Once he was detained, or let me back up. While he was detained, what had happened to the other two female passengers in the car?
They were passed off to the covert detectives.
And were they also detained at that point?
Yes, ma'am.
And so once everyone is detained, including the driver, what happened next?
After we handcuffed the driver, I went around to the passenger side. So I left the driver there with my partner.
Okay.
Yes.
And what'd you do? Why'd you go to the passenger side? What were you going to do at that point?
My concern was the back seat. It had not completely been cleared. We didn't know if someone might have been hiding.
Okay, so let's back up. Eventually, was a search conducted of the vehicle?
Yes.
Okay, and why was the search conducted?
I went to the passenger side of the vehicle. My Sergeant Jordan, went to the driver's side, and he spotted narcotics on the floorboard. And he stated to me, "There's dope."
Objection here, say.
Sustained.
So without saying what the sergeant would have told you, did you have personal knowledge that there was reason to search the car?
Yes.
Okay. And so once you began your search of the car, did you begin, which part of the car did you begin your search?
Front passenger side.
Did you locate anything? Well, actually, let me ask you a different question. Was there a lot of items inside of the car?
Correct. There's a lot of items inside the car.
Did you find anything illegal in the front passenger side?
Front passenger is more, the top center console.
Okay, you found something in the top center count.
It was, between the, passenger seat and the driver's seat
Right,
on
and
the
what-
center console.
What was that you found?
Green bag.
And describe, I mean, what kind of green bag was it? What did it look like?
It was like a small backpack, kind of like a tactical small backpack.
Okay, and did you search the inside of the backpack?
I did.
And what'd you find inside?
I found some what appeared to be methamphetamine.
Okay, and what did it, can you describe
It's a crystal-like substance.
what color is it?
White.
And in your training and experience that you received, do you learn how to identify controlled substances while you're on duty?
Correct.
And so based on your training, that substance that you saw, you recognized it to be, or it looks like methamphetamine to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And while you were conducting this stop, were you wearing a body worn camera?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do you have that body worn camera on you today?
I have it here with me. Yes, ma'am.
So can you, would that be the exact body cam you would have been wearing on June 21st of 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so describe, how does that work? How do you activate that?
Just a press of a button.
Okay.
Press of a button, it activates. And what it does is it backtracks 30 seconds. And I don't know if we all saw the video, but that's why there's silence. It's muted for 30 seconds and then you hear the beep and then you hear noise, audio. Yes, ma'am.
And on that day, were you also the patrol car that you were in? Because were you in a marked patrol unit?
Yes, ma'am.
And was your marked patrol unit equipped with a video camera as well?
Correct. Front windshield.
Okay, is that what we call co-band video?
Yes, ma'am.
And how does that work?
When the emergency lights are initiated, the camera will turn on unless we manually turn it on ourselves.
Okay. And may I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Officer Nieto, I'm going to show you what's been marked as state's exhibits number 1 and 2. You recognize both of these exhibits.
Yes, ma'am.
And how do you recognize them?
My initials and I placed the date on there.
Okay,
as well.
and what is on these discs?
It's footage from the incident.
Okay, and have you viewed this footage before your testimony today?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it a fair and accurate depiction of the events and conversation that took place on that day?
Correct.
And aside from agreed redactions that the state has made with defense counsel, has the body worn camera or the co-band video been altered in any way?
No, ma'am.
This time I would offer states exhibit 1 and 2 in the evidence pending objection.
I just need to know which one's one and which one's two.
States exhibit 1 is the body worn camera. States exhibit 2 is the co-band video.
No objection, Judge.
All right, then states exhibits 1 and 2 are admitted without objection.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
Granted.
So Officer Nieto, while Daniel loads that, first I'd like to watch with you, play part of your co-band video. And as it plays, I may ask you a few questions just to explain to the jury.
Work this morning.
Well, it seems that we're having some technical difficulties. So while we work on that, officer, let me keep asking you a few more questions. The person that was in the driver's seat, do you recall his name?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what was his name?
Melvin Jones.
And do you see Melvin Jones in the courtroom today?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you please point to him and identify an article of clothing that he's wearing?
White long sleeve shirt.
May the record reflect the officer has identified the defendant. And so, officer, is this Mr. Melvin Jones? This was the same individual that was at the traffic stop that day.
Correct.
And this traffic stop that you conducted, was this in Bear County?
Yes, ma'am.
And once you located these narcotics in the green backpack, what happened after that? What'd you do?
I put them back inside the bag
Right,
and
why-
notified the detectives.
And once you notified the detectives, did you continue to search the car?
I believe so. Yes, ma'am.
Or any, well, let me ask you a different question. So were you the officer who actually collected the drugs?
No, ma'am.
Do you recall which officer would have done that?
That might have been Detective Jesse Sotelo.
And is there a reason why Officer Sotelo versus yourself would be the one that collects the drugs?
No real reason why. That's just the way we operate. Yes, we're the ones that deal with the traffic stop, detaining anybody there at the scene. But as for the administrative stuff, the other detectives will pretty much take control of that.
And once the search was completed, was Mr. Jones arrested?
Yes,
And were you involved in part of that booking process?
yes.
And how does that happen? What is the booking process?
Booking process, we just transport. Since we do have a patrol vehicle with a cage in it, we're responsible for transporting prisoner to jail. Mhm.
Okay. And on any case, when a report is written, is there an SAPD case number that's generated?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall what the SAPD case number was for this case?
Not off the top of my head, no, ma'am.
Would it be,
Several numbers.
would
Yes,
it be in your report?
yes, ma'am.
If you had that report, would that help refresh your memory?
Yes.
May I approach Judge?
Yes,
Judge, would you like his report marked?
yes.
All right, officer, I'm going to show you the marker that is the degree. Is this a copy of your report?
Yes, ma'am.
What that SAPD case number was?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you please?
It's
tell me what that was?
SAPD 2213-1612.
And with the technical difficulties, I'm not able to play the video at this time, so I will pass the witness.
May I inquire, Judge?
Yes.
Good afternoon, officer.
Good afternoon, sir.
I'm going to ask you some questions. If you don't understand a question, just say, hey, I don't understand it, or can you clarify it?
Yes,
Okay?
sir.
You never saw Mr. Jones at the convenience store, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. It was, the reason you were pulled over was because of orders from other officers.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I want to clarify a couple of things. You had mentioned, unless I misunderstood you, you said that Mr. Jones was evading you?
It's eluding, more like just not trying to, as we're behind him, he's not actually taking dramatic measures to go into oncoming traffic. He accelerated at a higher rate of speed. Yes, sir.
Okay, so.
More eluding, not,
Well, let me ask you
Sure.
this. You
Yes,
didn't
sir.
have your emergency lights on, right?
Negative, no, sir, but just the mere presence of the police vehicles,
All
sir.
right, so let's do this. Let me ask the questions, and then if you'd answer that question, I think it'd be a little easier, okay? So you had mentioned this was like for about 2 blocks?
It was about half a block that he alluded.
Well, so let's back up a little bit. then.
We're about 2 blocks away, yes, sir.
When you first saw Mr. Jones's car, you were not on the same street as him.
Say that again, sir?
When you first saw the car that you wanted to pull over, you were not on the same street as him. You were at a stop sign and he passed up in front, right?
Yes, sir.
And then, so you get on that street and then maybe a half a block, or 2 blocks, up, there's a red light, right?
Yes, sir.
So you got on that street and you started going down. You did not have emergency lights on, right?
Correct. We did not.
And then there was a car in front of you on the right lane and Mr. Jones was in the left lane, right?
Yes, sir.
And then Mr. Jones gets into the right lane, correct?
Yes.
And then you get into the right lane behind this other car. So there was a car between you and Mr. Jones, right?
Okay.
And you're at a red light.
We,
And you don't have your emergencies on, right?
we did not have our emergency lights on.
Then Mr. Jones takes a right-hand turn,
Correct.
okay? And again, then you and your partner, then you weren't driving your car, right?
I was from passenger, sir. Yes, sir.
You all proceed around the car that was between you and Mr. Jones.
Correct.
And in the very first street, Mr. Jones had already taken a left, right?
Yes.
And then, so you went there, took the left, and then you all saw Mr. Jones pull into a driveway.
Correct.
Then you all pulled up, and as you were pulling up behind Mr. Jones is when you turned on the emergency lights, right?
Correct.
So I guess what you're telling me is this: if I see an officer behind me and I don't pull over, that's eluding?
There was no charge for eluding. It was just his action, sir.
So,
Yes, sir. And no license plate on the vehicle.
okay, now you're adding stuff that the questions aren't being asked. I'm asking this. We just went step by step of you following him.
Correct.
I live near a police station. I see police officers all day, every day. Are you sitting there saying if I take a right and a left and that officer happens to be going saying, well, I'm eluding him?
No, sir.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's an assumption that you're making that he was eluding you.
Yes, sir.
That's an assumption you're making
Through my experience.
that he even saw you.
Through my experience. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's an assumption. You don't know if he did or not. Right? You don't know if he saw you or not.
Correct. Yeah. Yes, sir.
In any event, the first time that the emergency lights, that he knew that an officer was there was when you were all directly behind him and he didn't try to drive away or jump out of the car and run.
No, he pulled into a driveway that was not related to him, his occupants, or the vehicle.
Correct. So the
Yes, sir.
question was, he didn't get out of the car and try to run.
Negative.
Now, when you got out of the car, your vehicle,
Yes, sir.
the car that Mr. Jones was in, the back window is very tinted, right?
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
And the back passenger 2 windows are very tinted.
Yes, sir.
The front window is not, and well, obviously the front windshield is not. And then the driver's side window and the passenger side are not tinted.
Correct.
So when you exit your vehicle, right, you're on the opposite side of the car that Mr. Jones is at.
Yes.
And that's when you have your service revolver drawn at that point in time. And as you stated, you have no idea how many people are in that car.
Correct.
And the reason you don't know how many people are in that car is, one, there's tinted windows, right?
Yes.
And then as the state pointed out, inside that car on the backpack, it was full of stuff. I mean, it was packed all the way to the top.
Correct.
So there's no way you could even see through that.
Yeah, it was plenty dark. Yes, sir.
Correct. Okay.
But
In
the
any event,
side view mirrors
It was
were
your
plenty
partner,
visible.
it was your partner that was on the other side, right?
Yes, sir.
That was the side with Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir.
So at that point in time, you get up, and maybe these are questions for your partner as far as the passenger getting out first, but you were more concerned about the passenger side of the car at that point in time.
Just any movement. Yes, sir.
Right. And you detained that female, right?
Correct.
And that female's name was Catherine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm gonna baby step you a little bit, okay? After Mr. Jones was handcuffed. Well, I'm gonna go back a little further. When you approached, after you had Catherine in handcuffs behind there, you went around to the driver's side of the vehicle at that point in time, but you didn't get
Correct.
right up to the car, right?
Say that again, sir?
You, if I may, Judge. When you got, after you had Catherine, she was a front driver, passenger, right?
Yes, sir.
She was detained and she was taken back to the police vehicle, right?
Correct.
Your partner was already on this side of the vehicle, asking the back passenger to get out of the car.
Back passenger was already out of the car.
By the time you came around.
Yes, sir. We were dealing with the driver now.
Okay, so when you came around though, you didn't go all the way up to the vehicle.
Correct.
Okay, and that's for officer safety.
Tactics. Yes, sir.
And so you're still behind the vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Quite some time. So you're still being blocked by the tinted windows and all the stuff in the back.
Yes, sir.
But what you did see at that point is what I heard you say is Mr. Jones had his hand out the window, right?
Yes.
Okay. And they were out there and then he gets out of the vehicle. And then
Correct.
that's when your partner then handcuffs him on the ground, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then she asked you about the search of the vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Now, when we're talking about just a lot of stuff, it wasn't just bags and bags of stuff in the back. There was trash all over that car, right?
That's correct.
And in the front passenger seat, there's a brown purse.
Yes, sir.
You searched that brown purse, right?
I did.
And in that brown purse, you found a driver's license. Right?
I can't recall, but
And that driver's license did not belong to Mr. Jones, right?
no, sir. I believe not. Yeah, it was a brown purse.
But also inside that brown purse, you found a meth pipe.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that brown purse that you found had an identifier of who that purse belonged to inside that brown purse, right?
Correct.
Then you tell this jury that you found this tactical bag on the center console.
Yes, sir.
Now,
It was pretty much around the elbow in between the passenger and driver's seat.
okay, so the jury could kind of picture this. You have the driver's chair and the passenger chair, right?
Correct.
And then we have those center consoles in the middle that you could open up the top,
Yes, sir.
right? Okay. That tactical bag was it on the back part of that center console? Pushed
Yes.
up against the stuff in the back, right?
Yes, sir.
And in front of that tactical bag,
Yes, sir.
and in front of that tactical bag was a stripes cup, right?
I don't recall the stripes cup.
May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as defense exhibit number 1. You recognize that?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. And how do you recognize that?
What do you mean by that, sir?
Well, how do you recognize the picture?
The scene. I
Was
was
that-
at the scene
Okay.
inside the vehicle.
And so has it been altered in any way, shape, or form? Is this the way you remembered the
Yes,
scene at
sir.
that point in time?
Yes, sir.
Judge, I'm gonna offer state's exhibit number 1, tender into state for any objections.
No objection.
All right, defense exhibit number 1 is admitted without objection.
May I approach again, Judge?
Yes.
Now, on state's, defense is number 1.
Do you need the witness to step down so the jurors can see what's being discussed?
I'm just gonna hand it out first, Judge, and then just so I could kind of lay the. Okay, so what we're looking at then is the front of the car, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, come on, step down if I may, Judge.
Yes. And state if you need to move to see. You're more than welcome to do so.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And the jury will be able to take this back with them. Now, if we're looking at defense one, what side of the vehicle are you on?
I'm on this side, passenger side of the vehicle where there's ground purse.
And so exactly what are we looking at with this picture?
The inside of the vehicle.
So when we're talking about the green bag that you searched, where is that?
That's in the center console, right behind that stripes cup.
Yes. Now, sitting directly behind Mr. Jones was Priscilla Thomas, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you get a good look at Priscilla Thomas?
Not that I can't remember her if I saw her right now, but at the time, yes.
Okay. And she's sitting directly behind that seat within arm's reach of that green bag, right?
Correct.
She's sitting within arm's reach of the floorboard of the back passenger seat and the front seat. It's a small car.
Yes, golly. Yeah, I mean. yes,
Sure.
sir.
Okay, now, inside that green bag, did you find any identifiers of Mr. Jones?
I don't believe so. Once narcotics were located, I left it in the bag for the detectives.
Okay, so there wasn't many things in that bag.
From what I can recall, is just a bunch of random stuff.
But nothing to show that that bag belonged to Mr. Jones.
Nothing I can remember that.
There was an earring
relates to-
inside that bag? You remember that?
No, sir.
You remember a bag of cookies in that bag?
No, sir, I do not.
So outside of just finding drugs in that bag, you don't know who that bag belonged to?
Correct. I just found the drugs and passed it off to detectives.
You don't know how that bag got to where it was?
That's correct, sir.
You don't know who had access to that bag?
Actually, there was surveillance conducted
When they're in the
and they
car.
were spotted with the Mr. Melvin Jones.
Okay, and we'll get to ask those witnesses those questions. But if you can't see inside that car and that car is driving from that spot to that spot, and they didn't get out right away when you all, right?
Correct.
You don't know who had access to that bag during all that period of time.
Yes, sir. Correct.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
Officer Nieto, I want to back up a little bit. So again, you and your partner were in uniform that day.
Judge, this is asked and answered.
All right, I'll hear the question, then I'll make a ruling.
But I'm just trying to clarify some of the things.
I will hear the question, then I'll make a ruling. I haven't heard the question.
Were you in uniform?
Yes, ma'am.
Were other officers involved in this traffic stop that were not in uniform?
Yes, ma'am.
So the purpose of you being present was to assist.
A couple of things.
Yes,
Judge.
ma'am.
One that was
I'm
leading.
sorry, just 1 second. Whenever someone stands or raises an objection, do not answer,
Okay.
because that means that they're asking me to make a ruling on something. And if you're unsure whether to answer or not, just ask me and I'll let you know.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Yes,
That question was leading, and we've already covered this on direct
right.
examination.
Objection will be sustained.
Were there other undercover officers that had conducted, as you testified to on cross surveillance?
Judge, and then again, That's been asked and answered, both on direct and on cross.
Right, that'll be overruled.
Yes, ma'am.
So was there more going on aside from you sitting at the Valero?
Yes,
Okay. And once the car was stopped in the driveway, you said you searched the purse on the passenger side,
yes.
and what was inside?
It was just women's belongings. Yes, ma'am.
Was there a female ID in that bag?
I believe so. Yes, ma'am.
Was there anything belonging to Melvin Jones inside of that bag?
I can't recall, ma'am.
Do you remember, was his ID in that bag?
I cannot recall.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Was there any female identification inside of the green bag?
I cannot recall that one either. No, ma'am.
And there were a lot of other items inside the car, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall what other kind of items were inside of the car?
Oh, you just had random things, clothing. It looked like a laundry basket, a motorcycle helmet. I mean, just random things.
Did it appear almost as though they were living in? the
Okay,
car?
Judge, leading and speculation.
Sustained.
And going back to the reason why you began the search, do you have personal knowledge of the drugs that were found in plain view?
Yes,
Did you see them?
I did.
Okay. Were they in the front part of the car?
Yes,
Were they between the driver's seat and the driver's side door?
yes,
Were they in the same type of bag that was found in the green backpack?
I cannot recall. Yes,
Do you recall, did you get a look at the drugs that were on the floorboard?
yes, it was just a look. Yes, ma'am. I didn't handle them.
Okay. Do you remember, did the visual appearance of those drugs look similar to the drugs found in the backpack?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you do any, did you assist in the search of any of these individuals?
I cannot recall that one either. No, ma'am. Yes.
Do you know if any narcotics were found on the person of any of these people?
No, I do not recall. No, ma'am.
I'll pass the witness check.
Briefly, Judge, I guess I'm, for my own clarification, when the state asked you about the drugs next to the door and the drugs in the backpack, she said, were they similar? And you said yes,
Yes.
but they were not similar packaging, were they?
I didn't handle the ones that were on the driver's side floorboard just because, yeah, I left them there just for the detectives
Okay, so all you know,
take account.
and I apologize. So all you know is that you saw drugs in the backpack. You don't know who put them there,
Correct. Correct.
how they got there,
Correct.
when they got there,
We're talking about the ones in the
in the
back?
backpack.
Okay,
right?
correct.
The door. You don't know when they got there,
Correct.
how they got there,
Correct.
or who put them there.
Correct.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
State.
No further questions, Judge.
All right, is this witness excused or subject to recall?
Excuse from the state.
Excuse me.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state of the defense. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you may step down. State, call your next witness.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you all a 15-minute break so that we can see if we can get the computer equipment working properly, because it'll be easier for you to see if that's working properly. You've heard some evidence in this case. You're not allowed to do any investigation on your own, any research. You're not allowed to start deliberating. If you see anything, you're to ignore it. Anything that you need to know about this case will come from inside the courtroom. Does everyone understand?
Yes, it is.
All right, everyone, please rise for the jurors.
calls, Sergeant Gordon, sorry, that's not now, sorry. I can-
All right, everyone, please be seated. And state upon your next witness.
The state calls Sergeant Gordon.
All right, proceed here. All right, you're still under oath. If you can state your name for the record, please.
Sergeant Stephen Jordan.
State.
Good afternoon, Sergeant Gordon. Get right into it. So who do you currently work for, sir?
The San Antonio Police Department,
How long have you worked for SAPD?
18 years.
What unit are you currently assigned to with SAPD?
The Covert Response Unit.
So what do you do with the covert response unit?
We, it's actually a newly created unit combining repeat offenders, narcotics and vice and HIDA. But we're basically a covert proactive unit that tries to intercept criminal activity when it's occurring. And another one of our main functions is arresting fugitives from justice.
And what type of training did you receive in regards to being with the covert unit?
Mostly some formal, but mostly informal on the job training. When I was a detective, I was assigned to the repeat offenders program, which is a subset of what the covert response unit is now. But all aspects of surveillance, both moving surveillance, static surveillance, narcotics investigations, using open source to track down fugitives, social media, stuff like that. It's just some of the things.
And were you working on June 20th of 2022?
I was.
And what were you doing on that day?
We were asked to assist a auto theft task force with conducting surveillance at a motel off I-10 East in Houston Street. They had received some intelligence that there could be some stolen trucks either there at the time or being dropped off there in the near future during that day.
So were you close to the motel on that day? Where were you?
I was parked on Houston Street, right off the access road of I-10. There's a gas station directly across from the hotel. I think the hotel is called the Knights Inn, if I remember correctly. And there's a Valero or Circle K gas station directly across the street from it on Houston Street, and that's where I was parked at the gas station.
So about how far away from the gas station were you?
I was parked in the parking lot of the gas station.
And how long were you there that day? Do you remember?
Maybe 45 minutes, an hour at the most, possibly.
And while you were there, what were you doing in regards to this task force?
I was just helping with the surveillance on the motel parking lot that faces my direction faces the Valero. I was sitting in the Valero parking lot using binoculars to watch the parking lot of the motel.
And I was going to ask generally, when you do surveillance like this, what are you doing generally?
I'm sorry, say again.
What are you doing generally whenever you're conducting surveillance like this?
In that particular case, I was looking for the trucks that we were looking for that were possibly stolen trucks being dropped off.
But I guess my question is getting more towards when you're conducting surveillance, what do you tend to do? Like, what are you doing other than you described looking through binoculars? But is there anything else?
Well, you want to be at a distance, obviously, so you're not standing out to any particular suspect that could be doing counter surveillance. So that's why I was across the street, and because of the distance, I was using binoculars to look at the motel parking lot. And then, of course, we relay any information to. It's not just me. We had myself and other detectives out there set up on all sides of the motel. So we're sharing information over the radio live as it's happening.
And are you recording anything that's going on at the motel?
Like video recording or?
Yes, sir.
No.
So while you were conducting your surveillance, did you notice anything? Did anything catch your attention?
Yes, well, we had been watching the motel for close to 30 to 45 minutes or so, and we hadn't come across what we were looking for as far as the stolen vehicles in that motel. But I did notice a vehicle that pulled into the gas station parking lot, and it was probably maybe 30 feet to 40 feet from where I was parked when it pulled in, and I noticed it didn't have any license plates on the front or the back of the vehicle.
And did you notice that who was inside the vehicle?
I saw the defendant in the vehicle and a female, and come to find out there was another female inside the vehicle, but she stayed in the vehicle the whole time. But the defendant and another female got out of the vehicle and went into the store.
And did anything catch your attention about when they went into the store?
They went back and forth a few times. I think 3 times maybe in and out. Coming back out to the car, kind of digging around in the car, going back in the store kind of thing.
And did they have anything on them, or did they?
Oh, yes. I noticed the defendant was carrying a green, like an army green style backpack.
And once you noticed, or once you made these observations, did you relay this information, the fact that there were no license plates on the front or the back?
I did.
To other detectives?
I did because we weren't having any luck with the operation that we were working. I put the information out over the radio, what I was observing at the gas station. And so we kind of diverted our attention toward that.
And based off of your experience, what does it mean when it means that there's no front or back license plate?
Well, I mean, it's a violation of a traffic law, for one, to drive a motor vehicle on a public roadway without license plates, but generally it alerts us to possible stolen vehicles or a vehicle that could have just been stolen. And a lot of times they'll steal a vehicle, take off the plates, and then look for a vehicle matching it to switch the plates.
And did you request that a traffic stop be conducted on this vehicle?
I did.
And after the traffic stop was conducted, did you approach the vehicle?
I did.
And where was the vehicle stopped?
It pulled into a driveway on a street running parallel to Houston, one of the neighborhood streets in a residential neighborhood, probably half a mile from the store, quarter mile to half a mile from the store, maybe a little bit further. It was close by, but yeah, the vehicle was pulled into a driveway at a house.
And once the individuals that were in the vehicle were detained, did you approach the vehicle?
I did.
And what did you see?
When I was walking up, to kind of go back a little bit, I stayed at the store originally whenever I asked the patrolman to conduct a traffic stop. And it was going to be a routine traffic stop as far as I'm concerned, just to investigate why there was no license plates on the vehicle. But they relayed over the radio that the driver was not being cooperative and not getting out of the vehicle. So because of that, I left my position at the gas station and went to where the actual traffic stop occurred. And as I pulled up, the driver had.
Judge, objection narrative.
So what happened whenever you were pulling up?
When I pulled up, the driver was out of the vehicle. The door was open. They were handcuffing the driver. The female passengers were out of the vehicle already. And when I walked up to where the open door was, I noticed a bag of what appeared to be methamphetamine on the floorboard adjacent to the driver's seat.
And have you had any training in drug identification?
I have.
And what did that training entail?
We get exposed to the way drugs are manufactured, the way they're packaged for delivery, or the way they're consumed as far as injection or smoking or all that kind of stuff.
So
And the way they look too, of course. Yeah.
So when you approached the vehicle, how quickly did you notice the narcotics that you mentioned?
It was fairly quickly. It's pretty much as soon as I walked up and looked, I saw it there.
And were you the officer who collected the evidence?
I was not.
Oh, why is that?
I was the supervisor, so I basically general practice, and whether you're a detective or a supervisor, we always, if contraband is discovered, there's always a person that's designated as the evidence custodian. So we pointed out to them where it's located, and before it's collected or tested or processed, it gets photographed first in its original state where it's found.
And were you equipped with body worn camera on this day?
I'm sorry, say again?
Were you equipped with body worn camera on this day?
I was, yes,
Okay. And are you trained in how to properly operate the body worn camera?
yes,
And have you had a chance to review those recordings?
I did, yes,
Or I should say probably just recording.
recording, yes.
And Judge, may I approach?
Yes.
Gonna show to defense real quick. Now, Sergeant Jordan, I'm going to show you what's being marked as State's Exhibit number 4. Do you recognize this?
I do.
What is it?
It's a DVD of my recording, my body worn camera.
And have you had a chance to review this?
I have.
Okay. And aside from the audio that was muted, has the video been altered or amended in any way?
No.
Your Honor, state what Oliver states Exhibit 4.
No objection. Can we approach just briefly, Judge?
Right, then, State's Exhibit, what number is that, counsel?
Number 4, Judge.
All right, State's Exhibit number 4, then it's admitted without objection.
And Judge, permission to publish.
Granted.
So I'm stopping the video. It's in the top right corner, 151703. Sergeant Jordan, what are we seeing right now?
That is the house where the traffic stop ended up occurring off that side street off of Houston Street. The little maroon SUV is the vehicle that they were in without the license plates.
Sergeant Jordan, I just want you just to point out whenever you see the narcotics that you mentioned.
Okay. I think pretty much probably right around there is when I noticed it.
Do you see the narcotics?
I do.
Where are they?
Right on the left side of the driver's side seat on the floorboard, in between the door and the seat.
And again, you didn't collect the narcotics, did you?
Correct. No, I didn't.
Now, we also see in this frame, what is that? Do you see the bag up in this frame, the video?
I do. Yes.
Now, what is that bag?
That is the green bag that I saw the defendant carry on his person when he went to the gas station.
Now, just briefly, I want to go back to that moment that you mentioned. Did you record that, what you saw, any of those observations and going in and out of the store?
I did not.
And just, was there anything important about him going in and out of the store?
No,
And was that bag, did you search that bag?
I did not.
Now, you were the supervising officer at the scene, right?
Correct.
Were you aware, were the occupants of the vehicle, were they searched, like their person?
Yes,
As far as you're aware, were there any drugs found on any of the occupants' actual physical person?
no,
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, defense.
Thank you, Judge. Still start Sergeant Jordan.
yes, sir.
You wrote a police report, right?
Yes, sir.
And the reason you write police reports is so you can remember details about what happened that day. Is that right?
Correct.
And the reason you do that is in case you have to testify, you can refer back to your police report to show exactly the important things, right?
Correct.
So everything that was important, you wrote in your police report, right?
At the time, yes, I believe so.
May I approach, Judge?
My
Yes.
report is a supplement report to the offense report.
What is this?
A supplement report is, there's one officer or detective that handles the actual investigation that writes the offense report. And then everybody else involved writes a supplemental report to what their involvement was in the incident.
So you weren't the lead detective, right?
Correct.
Who was the lead detective?
Detective Ariel Hernandez.
May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
I'll show you what's been marked exhibit number 2. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
That is my supplement report from that incident.
Now, you mentioned that to the state on direct examination, that at the Valero station, you saw Mr. Jones and a female come in and out of that Valero, right?
Correct.
About 2 or 3 times, right?
Correct.
Show me in your report where that's stated.
It's not in there.
Okay. In fact, what is in there is you say they got out of the car, went into the store, and then they came out of the store and left.
Correct.
Okay. So no 2 or 3 times, right?
Wrong. That is what happened.
So you're wrong in your report.
No, I just didn't include it.
Well, your report says they got out and then got in, went to the store, got out and left.
Correct.
But you just testified they got out, came in, and then left.
Correct.
Okay. So which one is correct? Either your report or your testimony?
They're both correct.
Both correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you just said it differently in your report than what you're saying on the stand.
You could say that. Yes.
Well, no, you just said that.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you said that Mr. Jones was carrying a green backpack, right?
Correct.
How long were they in the store?
A minute or two, maybe.
So within a minute or two, you're saying they went into the store, came back out to the car, then went back into the store, came out to the car, then went back into the store, and then came out in the car?
I would be guessing, to be honest, on the time limit, but it wasn't very long. From the time that they arrived at the store to the time they left was probably 5 minutes in total.
Okay. Now, the female that got out of the car with Mr. Jones was she a Black woman?
I don't recall.
You recall she got out from the back of the car.
Yes.
And so so she was in the back of the car behind the driver's seat,
I can't recall where she was sitting in the back seat.
but she was the back seat.
Yes.
And so she was the one that was with Mr. Jones
In the store.
that got out of the car and went into the
Yes.
store. And came back out. So you don't know whose backpack that is. All you know is that you said you saw him carry it,
Correct.
but you don't know whose it belonged to.
Correct.
Could it belong to her? Right? Could it
Possibly.
belong to the other passenger?
Possibly.
Could it belong to anybody that left it in the car? We just don't know.
Correct.
Correct? You never saw Mr. Jones open up that backpack at the store?
No,
You never saw him place anything in the backpack?
no,
You never, so all you know that you can tell this jury is this, that Mr. Jones carried that backpack in the store and that was the backpack that he had.
correct,
You don't know what was in it at the time or how it got there.
correct.
The narcotics that we see that's the state still has up, that's exactly where you said you saw them, right?
That's exactly where it was, yes.
Okay. Now, would you agree with me? The back seat to that front seat area, 12 to 15 inches?
Sure,
We don't know when those drugs were there, right?
they were there when I arrived, that's all I know.
That's all you know. You don't know how they got there.
Correct,
You don't know who placed them there.
correct,
You don't know who they belonged to.
correct.
So other than that, you don't, who's in charge as far as the detectives is concerned? Would that be Detective Hernandez?
She was the one that took lead on the case.
Okay, and when we say lead, when you're a detective, generally speaking, you're the one that is basically in charge of what evidence is collected. You're telling everybody what to do, right?
Yes,
Okay. You're telling them what needs to be tested or not tested, right?
correct,
You're telling everybody what to test and not to test.
correct,
You're the one that is what is important for a jury to see or not see, right?
yes.
That wasn't your job that day.
I was overall responsible for the incident, but it was her investigation, yes.
Okay. When you say overall, you were talking more along the lines of the
Administratively, like, yeah, I don't tell them exactly how to run their investigations, but
exactly.
yeah,
So
I know what you're saying, yeah.
you're not the one that's going to sit there and say, "Hey, let's try to find an affirmative link between where this drug came from and how it got there."
Correct,
You're not the one that's going to tell a lab or CSI, let's see if we could take prints off of that to see if prints match or anything, right?
correct.
In the bag, is there any identifying markers in that backpack that would show that, hey, that backpack belonged to Mr. Jones? Right?
Right.
That would be the lead detective's job.
I would agree with that, yes.
Do you know if any of that happened in this case?
I don't believe so. If I remember correctly, I don't think they questioned him at all. I could be wrong, but I don't believe they questioned him at the scene either.
And in fact, to this day, we still don't know who that backpack belongs to. Other than you saying you saw Mr. Jones carrying it, right?
He had possession of it, correct?
And that, we don't know who owned it, or whether he was just carrying it or not.
Correct,
We don't even know if he knew what the contents of it were.
correct.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
All right, state.
Nothing from the state, Judge.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Well, excuse me, Judge.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state or the defense.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. The state, call your next witness.
The state calls Detective Hernandez, Judge.
All right, you're still under oath. If you could state your name for the record and please spell it.
Ariel Hernandez, Ariel Hernandez.
Right, state.
Detective Hernandez, who do you currently work for?
San Antonio Police Department,
How long have you worked for the San Antonio Police?
almost 10 years.
And what training did you receive to become a member of SAP?
We did firearms training, driving training, tactics, little bit of a lot of other stuff.
So what unit are you currently assigned to?
Covert unit.
And what do you do with the covert unit?
So we focus on basically repeat offenders, wanted persons, anything related to narcotics, firearms, little bit of everything.
So how long have you been with that unit?
Almost a year since the reconstruction of the units.
And were you working on June 20th of 2022?
Yes.
What were you doing on June 20th of 2022?
I had gotten a call from one of a sheriff from another agency, another county, and they needed assistance in finding stolen vehicles or a stolen vehicle that was involved, I believe in Kendall County. And they asked us for help. So
I'm gonna object to hearsay.
Sustained.
Where were you on that day?
I was at around Houston and 10 at the Valero.
And what were you doing there?
We're doing surveillance, waiting for the stolen vehicles, see if we saw them.
And do you remember how long were you there?
I don't remember exactly how long.
Was it a long time, short amount of time?
No, it was a while, a long time.
And where were you specifically? Where were you located when you were doing this?
If you're facing the Valero, as soon as you come in from Houston, I was on the left end of the parking lot, so opposite from where Sergeant Jordan was at.
And just to clarify, was this location, is it in Bexar County, Texas?
Yes,
So you were on the opposite side of the parking lot from Sergeant Jordan, right?
yes.
And what were you doing as part of the surveillance?
I was still doing surveillance, but I just had a different angle from where everybody else was at.
And when you say doing surveillance, what does that involve?
So we were waiting for the vehicles that were involved. Basically keeping an eye on the vehicles that were involved in the burglaries that were being committed over in Bernie.
And did you see anything while you were there?
Yes.
What did you see?
I saw Sergeant Jordan had keyed up on the radio and said he observed that
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
So was your attention drawn to any vehicle in the Valero?
yes.
And did you see anyone in the exit vehicle?
Yes.
How many people did you see exit the vehicle?
2.
Was it a man? Were the men?
A man and a woman.
And did you make any observations of the vehicle?
It didn't have the front or rear license plate. And I want to say, I think it had damage to the body. I don't remember where, but it was damaged.
Yeah. And did you notice the man carrying anything?
Yes, when he exited the vehicle, he had like a camel green bag.
Excuse me, can you repeat that again?
He had like a camel green bag.
And was that vehicle stopped
In the parking lot?
in general?
Yes. It was, it had pulled into a parking spot.
And was a stop, did you request that a stop be conducted on that vehicle? Was it you?
I don't remember who did, but I want to say it was Sergeant Jordan.
And who would have stopped that vehicle? Would you have stopped the vehicle?
No,
Why not?
because I'm not in a marked patrol unit.
Were you wearing the uniform?
No, I was in plain clothes.
Okay, so you weren't wearing what you're wearing today.
No,
And why were you in plain clothes in an unmarked vehicle?
the unit that I'm with, we do, we wear regular clothes, plain clothes. So to do surveillance, so we're not noticeable. We just blend in with everybody else.
And why wouldn't you have made the stop?
Because to anybody else, I think I'd be just an average, just a regular person, civilian. So like I said, it was in uniform or a police car. That's why.
And were there uniformed police officers assigned to the unit?
Yes,
Would they have been the ones to have conducted the stop?
yes.
Now, about how long did it take for them to conduct the stop? Do you remember?
Shortly after the car left, yeah, I mean, it was pretty quick after once it took off. Once the car left the parking lot, the officers followed because they weren't far from there. So once he left, I think they turned out their emergency lights and initiated the traffic stop.
And where did the vehicle stop?
I'm not too familiar with the area, but I think it pulled into taking a right-hand side on one of the streets, and then it went through the neighborhood, and then they pulled into a driveway.
But it didn't travel that far.
Not too far, no.
And were you there when the stop was conducted?
Initially, no. I got there once it was pulled into the driveway, and when I got there, they were trying to get the passenger and the driver out of the vehicle, or they were calling them out. The officers were.
And where was that passenger seated? Do you remember?
Where was the passenger seated?
Yes, ma'am.
One of the females was occupying the passenger side on the front, and the other one in the back.
And did you approach the vehicle after it had been stopped?
Once everybody was out, yes.
And at that point, what did you do?
I assisted in searching the vehicle.
And who were you assisting in searching the vehicle?
Officer Nieto and Talento.
And did you find anything?
Yes, they had the because I took pictures of the narcotics that were in there.
Do you know where were the narcotics found?
Yes, one of them was on the driver's seat, driver's side floorboard, and then the other ones were in the green camel backpack or bag.
Were you the officer?
May we approach?
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, have you step outside just for 2 minutes, just in the hallway for a moment. All right, everyone, please rise for the jurors. All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, if we could have just have the witness step off the witness stand, and if you'll talk to the state and the defense attorneys.
Drugs in another. I didn't package it.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was just saying it's fine. Oh, no, they can stand hollow. I just didn't want them to hear what they were discussing.
And I think we were referring to the one in the bag. You said.
Don't say it in the others. Yeah. you said it that one. So, I don't know the cut. I just want to make sure that's.
I
where
know,
we're at.
I think we, I think that it was just split, so. We don't worry about it. It's one of the things that people.
Are you both ready to bring the jurors back in?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes,
Okay,
Judge.
we can bring them back in.
All right, for the jury.
Mr. Jones took it. Oh. Yeah, I'm gonna put it in there. Because we saw me right there. It's just stuff in the left. I'll fuck it.
State,
So Detective Hernandez, so you mentioned that you observed the drugs that were in the driver's side, and you found the narcotic in the bag, correct?
Correct.
Were you the officer that found these drugs?
No.
But you were made aware of them,
Yes.
and who was the officer who collected the drugs?
At the scene, I collected them.
Were you the officer who put them in the property room?
No.
Who was that officer?
Detective Sotelo.
Why was that split up? If you collected them, why didn't you put them in the evidence room?
Usually when we have a case like that, we split up the I guess the responsibility since I'm handling the case. That way I don't have all the workload to myself.
And were you aware, were the persons of the occupants of the vehicle, were they searched?
Yes.
And were there any narcotics found on the actual physical persons?
I searched the two females. I couldn't tell you on everybody else, but the females didn't have anything on them.
And just going back to that surveillance, I'm just curious. So when you were in that parking lot at the Bolero, were you alone or were you with someone else?
In the car or in the parking lot?
Car?
No, it was just me by myself.
And on this day, were you equipped with a body worn camera?
Yes.
Okay. And have you had a chance to view that recording?
Yes.
And are you trained in how to operate the body worn camera?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach?
yes,
Defense real quick? Now, Dr. Hernandez, have you had a chance to review the recording?
Yes.
Okay. And is it a true and accurate depiction of what happened on that day?
Yes.
Okay. Has it been altered or amended in any way?
No.
Okay. Your Honor, state would offer states exhibit number 5 into evidence.
any objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, state's exhibit number 5 is admitted.
Now, did you see the defendant put the drugs in the bag?
No.
Did you see anyone put the drugs in the bag?
No.
Did you see the defendant put the drugs where the driver's side door is?
No.
But he was the driver.
Yes.
Last witness.
All right, defense,
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Detective Hernandez.
Acceptance.
You never actually saw, well, let's start at the beginning. Lead you that way. You're doing surveillance at the convenience store, right?
Correct.
And you said you saw Mr. Jones and a female go into the store, right?
Yes.
And that female was the back passenger of the car.
I don't remember where she was sitting, but I just remember a male and a female.
You don't remember where she got out of the car?
No.
But what you did say is you saw him carrying this green bag.
Correct.
You never saw him look into the bag.
No.
You never, You watched them walk in, right?
I saw them from where I was at. I couldn't see them go into the store. I just saw them exit. And then when they came back, they both went back into the same car.
Okay, so they went into the store once and then came back out of the store and then drove off.
Correct.
And so you don't know if Mr. Jones opened that bag inside the store? Right? You don't even know if that bag was Mr. Jones's.
No,
Now, the narcotics you said you found in that stopped car, right? One, the bag, when I say the bag, I'm gonna confuse the jury and I'm gonna confuse myself. So let me back up. The narcotics found in the car floorboard, right? How was that packaged?
I believe it was in a like a plastic baggie.
So you kind of twist it just like a, do you remember that?
I'd have to review my pictures.
The narcotic that was found inside the green duffel bag was packaged different than the one next to that was found on the floorboard, right?
I don't remember if they were packaged differently.
So you don't remember what the packaging looked like?
No,
You don't remember how much was in, or which one was bigger or smaller?
I believe the one in the bag was smaller. I mean, bigger.
The one in the green bag had more? than
I
the one-
believe so.
You don't remember?
I don't exactly know.
Okay. But what you do know is the only thing you can tell this jury is this, is that you saw Mr. Jones carrying a bag, right? A green bag.
Yes,
You don't know if it belonged to Mr. Jones, right?
correct.
You never saw Mr. Jones open the bag, never saw him look in the bag. You know there was narcotics in the car on the floorboard right here, on the driver's side, right?
Correct.
And that's within reaching distance of the passenger behind him, right? Maybe
Ye-
12, 15 inches.
Yes,
You don't know how that drug got there.
no,
You don't know when it got there.
no,
You don't know who put it there.
no,
And then you said there's a drug in the backpack. You don't know when it got there,
no,
how it got there,
no,
who put it there,
no,
and we don't even know whose bag it was, right?
correct.
Now, as the lead detective, then, when we're doing this, we're here for beyond a reasonable doubt, right?
Correct.
That's different than probable cause, would you, right?
Correct.
So when somebody is arrested, the officer feels like, okay, I have probable cause to make this arrest, and that's what Mr. Jones was at that point in time for probable cause, right?
Correct.
And probable cause for these drugs.
Yes.
So from probable cause, there is no affirmative link between the drugs and Mr. Jones, right?
Right.
The baggie next to on the floorboard of the car, there was no fingerprints ever taken off of that, right?
Correct.
The green bag itself, there was no identifiers such as a driver's license inside that bag that would say, hey, this could be Mr. Jones's bag, right?
I don't think so.
Do you recall there was an earring found inside that bag?
An earring? No,
You don't even recall what was in that bag.
not off the top of my head. No.
But what we can't tell this jury for sure is nothing in that bag can tell us whether that bag was Mr. Jones's or not.
I don't recall. I don't remember seeing any identifying information of his.
The females. You did talk to the front driver, front, God bless you. the front passenger when you first arrived? Do you remember that?
I remember speaking to one of them, yes. I don't know if she was the front driver or the rear passenger. I mean, front passenger or the rear.
You don't remember where she was, all right?
No.
Did you ever look into any of them?
Like, look at their history?
Yeah.
No. I mean, a person check was done, but that's as far as it went.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
State.
So during cross, you mentioned that no fingerprints were found on. Is that correct?
Correct. I didn't dust it for prints, no.
Why didn't you dust it for prints?
Normally on those, like we don't.
Why?
I couldn't tell you why. I mean, they just,
Have you had training in how to detect fingerprints
yes,
and how to lift them?
yes.
And depending on the material, can that affect whether or not you're
Judge? Is he sponsoring her as an expert? So I'd like to have a hearing on this.
State.
Your Honor, she mentioned that she's had training and experience, and the defense did ask about fingerprints.
I asked if she had them taken.
Are you offering her as an expert? State.
No, Judge, but she does have training and experience, and she can testify to what she knows.
Right, then you need to ask those questions about what she knows and what she does not know.
Now, do you know if a surface's material can that affect whether or not you're able to take fingerprints?
Yes.
And how can that affect that?
Would depending on the material or the texture, then on some you can and others you can't.
And typically, do you test the bags where narcotics are found in these types of cases? Do you test them for fingerprints?
No.
And why is that?
On that one, it was a smaller, so on a bigger bag, I think it'd be a lot easier, but not on that one.
So
Just based on the texture too and the wrinkles and the way it was, I don't think you could even lift a print from that.
Let's be honest. The reason you didn't test it, it wasn't because you couldn't, it's because you saw drugs right there. He was the driver and he said, hey, I got probable cause.
It's not typically normal for us to print the little baggies.
That's not what I asked. It's not typical. It's because the drugs were found right there. And in your all's eyes at that moment in time, because those drugs were found right next to him, that was good enough for you. Because it could have been done. And the reason I asked that is because you just testified to this jury that there's no identifiers connecting Mr. Jones to those drugs.
I'm gonna object to narrative, Judge.
That'll be overruled.
So we got to get from probable cause to beyond a reasonable doubt somehow.
Judge, I'm gonna object. I don't believe there was a question in there.
That'll be sustained.
Okay, so other than finding those drugs there, there was no investigation as to, hey, let's make sure somehow, some way, these drugs belong to Mr. Jones, that he had possession of those drugs.
No, and I think they were just the drug paraphernalia and the door panel where he was at. But that was the only thing that was pretty much closer.
There was drug paraphernalia in the passenger side too, in a purse with an ID.
I think it was all over the car.
Again, did you test that drug paraphernalia for Mr. Jones?
We can't test it in one way. In what way?
Sure you can. If it's made out of glass. The reason you wear gloves when you're picking up evidence is not to contaminate any kind of evidence, right?
Correct.
And you put those gloves on, right?
Yes,
And you can get fingerprints very easily from drug paraphernalia if it's glass.
yes.
That wasn't done.
No, it wasn't.
So you made a lot of assumptions that day as to whom that drug belonged to, and where things were found, made it pretty easy to make that arrest.
I felt like I had enough probable cause, yes.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
State,
Nothing further from the state, Judge.
is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Excuse from the state.
Excuse, Judge.
All right, the rule that's been invoked, what that means is you cannot discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state or the defense. Thank you. State, call your next witness.
Your Honor, state calls Officer Sotelo, sorry, Detective Sotelo.
Thank you. All right, if you have a seat here. You're still under oath. If you could write, if you could state your name for the record, please, and
Detective,
spell it.
Detective Jesus Sotelo, JESUS SOTELO.
State,
Judge, may we approach?
yes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you a brief recess. We're going to be back here in 10 minutes, so that'll put us at 4:35. Is everyone okay with staying at least till 5:30 maybe? All right. Oh, no. Okay, 5. All right, everyone, you've heard some evidence in this case. You're not allowed to discuss it with yourself or amongst each other. You're not allowed to do any investigation or look at any social media. If there is any, you're to ignore it. Everything that you need to know about this case comes from inside the courtroom. Does everyone understand? All right, everyone, please rise. All right, everyone, please be seated.
Officer Sotelo, so our both drugs.
Done about when you can talk with him.
Oh, okay.
Because I know the deputies. have to do a couple.
All right, so jury.
Yeah. So tell me who you work for? Who do you work for?
The San Antonio Police Department, sir.
How long have you worked for SATV?
As of 6 days ago, 17 years.
And what unit are you currently assigned to?
Currently assigned to the Fusion Covert Unit on daylight.
And on June 20th of 2022, were you working on that day?
Yes, I was.
What were you doing on that day?
On that day, we were asked to assist a auto theft task force on the east side. And we had met to be given instructions from the lead detective on that task force. And we were there conducting surveillance on a motel in the area.
And you called out to assist in a investigation.
Yes, I was.
And what was your role in this investigation?
During this investigation, my role was as an assisting detective was I assisted in the mobile surveillance once vehicles went moving, assisted in relaying information to the officers that were going to be performing the stop for us. And then after the stop was completed, I was tasked with the evidence collection and documentation.
And was there a vehicle that was stopped on this day?
Yes, there was.
And again, what was your role once the vehicle had been stopped?
My role once everybody was safely secured, all occupants. After that, my role was to wait for the vehicle to be processed. And then my role specifically was to document where any items of contraband were found and then store them and get them ready for processing and then storage.
And so were there any items collected from that scene?
Yes.
What were they marked as?
In my evidence reports, I have items were found at this scene and as evidence marked E1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then items that were found marked as F1 and F2.
So I want to focus on E1 and E3. Okay. What were those items?
E1 and E3, sir, were both to E1 is a clear plastic twist-tied baggie containing methamphetamines. And E3 is a small Ziploc baggie containing methamphetamines.
Where these items were found?
Yes.
Were you the one that found them?
No.
Where was E1 found?
E1 was relayed to me as found by Sergeant Jordan. And in my report was listed as found in between the driver's seat and the driver's door, there's that small area that kind of goes under the seat where I've dropped stuff and gets lost under there before. If you kind of know what I'm describing, it was found there.
And what about E3?
E3 was found inside of a OD green satchel.
And once those items of evidence are collected, what did you do with them?
I carry manila envelopes similar to this in my vehicle in a box. And so once those items are collected, I notate where they were found by who, and then I place them in a manila envelope to prepare for either field testing or then transport for storage.
And where are they stored at?
They are stored at the San Antonio Evidence and Property Room.
And whenever you store things at the property room, what do you do?
When I take these items to the property room, first each item is weighed and there is a weight placed on an evidence tag. That evidence tag has a specific barcode that tells you that piece of evidence is assigned that number. That evidence is then placed into a manila envelope with a tag affixed to it. And in this case, because they are penalty group 1 narcotics, they are labeled to be sent to lab for testing. Once the label is created, the bags are sealed. Let me take a step back. I mark the bags because I'm the one who places it into the manila envelope before it's sealed. And then that bag is placed into a narcotics safe that can only be opened by property room staff at the next business day, where they take custody of it and take it to a larger storage facility.
May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
So up there, you have what's been marked as state exhibit number 6. What is this?
This is the manila envelope where the E items were placed in to be put in the vault.
And how do you make sure that these items stay consistent with the same case, that we're not mixing up drugs?
So each barcode is listed with a case number, the item number in this case E1 and E3, and then the barcode which is specific to these items.
And what is the SAPD case number for this case?
The SAPD case number on this case is SAPD 22131612.
Okay. And is that the same SAPD case number that would be found on your report?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And so then what was inside of state's exhibit number 6?
So inside of state exhibit number 6 is the items you referring to is E1 and E3.
Would you be able to pull them out?
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's just, thank you. Bless you, Judge.
Thank you.
What was inside?
Inside this particular package is the items that I have listed as E1 and E3.
And what would be inside the overall bag?
So because understand that E1 and E3 are two separate pieces of evidence, but because they are both allegedly methamphetamine, they're placed in the same manila envelope here before they are placed in the final manila envelope. So in this package specifically is both the E1 and E3 and their contents that were found with the original packaging inside. This plastic bag that is labeled with evidence tape is the way that it's returned back from the lab after it's been tested.
And what type of packaging were these items contained in?
The E1 and E3 were both contained in like Ziploc baggies or corners of sandwich baggies, which is what's commonly used in the street sales or distribution of contraband narcotics.
And on the items in state's exhibit number 7, would you mark any of those items?
Yes, the items that were given a field test would have been specifically marked. And on that one would be, you can't really see it, but it is the corner of a sandwich bag that is twisted and tied. The laboratory had opened it to conduct their field testing, but they left the original packaging here. You can kind of make out the baggie and the knot right there.
And would you have marked any of these bags?
Yes, that bag in particular.
What would you have marked it with?
I would have marked it with initials, JS and 32 in small lettering.
And did you do that here? Do you recall?
Yes.
Okay. And are these the same drugs that you would have put into the property room in regards to this case?
Yes. They stay with me from the time that I collect them from the scene to driving to the property room to process them, weigh them, and put them in the final packaging and into the vault. That is the last time that I have my hands on them when they go into the narcotics vault.
Until today?
Until today, of course.
Possibly.
Defense?
Detective, So you don't have any personal knowledge of where those narcotics were found, right?
The,
Personal knowledge.
as the evidence detective, when it's found by the detectives conducting the search, it's pointed out to me where it was found. Because we're responsible for photographing, and documenting, it's usually not moved until I go to move it. So
So you- I'm sorry to interrupt you. So you went and physically took it from where the detective said they found it, and it's still at that location.
yes,
So E1 and E3 were in two different areas, right?
yes, sir.
So you said E1 was wrapped how?
E1 was not wrapped. It was in plain view. So
No,
when
no, no, the bad question.
Oh, I'm sorry, the packaging.
The packaging, E1.
E1 was the clear plastic twist tied bag.
Okay.
Yes,
Then E3 was a smaller package with, if you looked at it, it had like little dice on it,
the
right?
the Ziploc packages.
Two different packaging. materials.
Yes,
And E3 was the smaller amount,
correct. E3 was a smaller amount.
and E3 was found in the green bag.
Correct.
And then the other E1 was found next to the door.
Correct.
Okay. But you didn't see how those E1 or E3 got to, let me break it down a little bit. You don't know how E1 got there. You never saw Mr. Jones put it there.
No,
So in other words, you don't know how it originated.
right. I would have to have been inside the car to see that, of course.
And you don't know how E3 got into the green satchel bag.
No,
So all you do is they tell you, here's some drugs, pick them up, and you collected them and brought them today.
yes, correct, sir. When they are found, they're pointed out to me, and then I handle the packaging there.
Okay. Pass witness, Judge.
State.
No questions from the state judge.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Excuse.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state or the defense.
Understood, Judge.
All right, thank you. State, call your next witness.
Judge, if you just have one moment, I believe Ms. Shaw went to go get our next witness.
All right, okay, thank you.
Judge, is the state still processing?
Yes,
So should I leave it?
yes, leave it there, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if you could raise your right hand for me, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth or nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you can lower your hand if you state your name for the record.
My name is Maureen Migliori, spelled,
Thank you.
oh, you want me to spell it out or?
Yes, please.
Okay, Maureen is spelled Maureen, and Migliori is spelled Migliore.
All right, state.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Ms. Migliori. Can you please tell the jury how you're employed?
I'm a forensic scientist at the Bexar County Crime Lab.
And how long have you worked for the Bexar County Crime Lab?
I've worked at the crime lab over 2 years.
And so what kind of education and training did you receive in order to work at the lab?
So I have a bachelor's of science in forensic science. I have a master's of science in forensic science. I have in-house training, and then I have continuing education as well.
And so as a forensic scientist for the lab, what are your duties?
My duties include testing physical evidence, writing reports, analyzing data, and testifying in court.
And have you received, did your training include specialized training as far as lab analysts, conducting lab analysis?
Yes, yes, it did.
And do you belong to any professional organizations?
Not currently, but I'm involved in organizations, yes.
And have you testified as an expert before?
Yes.
And can you tell the jury a little bit about the Bexar County Crime Lab and what you do there?
So the Bexar County Crime Lab is a lab that takes in evidence from clients such as like SAPD in order to test evidence in order like to be used in matters of the law.
And does the lab have any credentials or certification?
Yes, it's an accredited crime lab through the Texas Accreditation Board.
And as a forensic scientist and what you do at the lab, is it possible to take unknown substances and identify them?
Yes, it is possible.
And how is that done?
That is done by performing preliminary testing and confirmatory testing.
May I approach Chuck?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm going to show you. Well, first I'll start with State's Exhibit number 6.
Mhm.
Do you recognize State's Exhibit 6?
Yes, I do.
And how is it that you recognize it?
I recognize it first by my initials twice on here, the Bexar County Crime Lab evidence tape, the criminal investigation laboratory number, and just generally recognize it.
And is this something that you received from SAPD or any agency
Yes.
when you're going to test a substance? And if I remove the contents here. If we look at State's Exhibit number 7, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And again, how is it that you recognize it?
So I see my initials, the date, the CIL number, and the item numbers written in my handwriting. I see the Bexar County Crime Lab tape, see my initials and the date, and that's what I see.
And so are those initials, those are things that you put on any item of evidence when you receive it from an agency?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that how, when you put those identifiers, is that how you were able to distinguish one bag of drugs from another?
Yes, by putting my initials, the date I sealed it, the actual CIL number, the crime investigator laboratory number, and the item number. That's how I identify it.
And do you know when these items of evidence were received at the lab?
Initially, I have the chain of custody in my notes. Would you want me to look initially or when I received it?
When you received it?
I received it, actually, I received it on June 30th, 2022.
And so before you receive it, is there a process in the way that it gets assigned to you?
Yes, so evidence comes into the laboratory and we start a chain of custody. This chain of custody starts from the agency to us where it is taken into evidence receiving, and evidence receiving holds it in the secure vault, all evidence in the vault until it is ready for pickup. And that would be me to then get up and test it.
And so is it at this time, once you've picked it up, that you put your identifying markers?
Yes, so when I pick it up, it goes into my custody. It is under my name. I put my initials physically on the envelope.
And so in this case, I think you might have already said it, but is there a CIL number that is assigned?
Yes, there is.
And when we say CIL number, what does that mean?
It's the criminal investigative laboratory number. It is a unique identifier to that specific case.
And so what is that CIL number?
The CIL of this case is 22-03-502.
And is there a coordinating SAPD case number assigned with the CIL number?
Yes, there is.
What is that case number?
The SAPD number is 22-13-1612.
And when we are talking specifically about State's Exhibit number 7, did you analyze the contents of State's Exhibit number 7?
Yes.
And so I want to talk about how you did that.
Mhm.
So what is the first thing you do when you begin to analyze these substances?
So the first thing I do is take a description of what I find. And so that I would write down my description And then I would weigh the contents of, if it a powder, drug, whatever it is, I would take the net weight of it.
And so what was the net weight in this case?
Exhibit 7, item 1-1-1, the weight was 3.676 grams.
And when you say item 1-1-1, is there an SAPD item number associated with that?
There are 2 items in this case. One is E1 and one is E3. Oh, actually, that's probably, I apologize. I'm looking at my notes. That one is E1. I apologize.
Okay. And was there another, so were there 2 baggies that you did test?
I tested 2 items. Yes, I tested E1 and E3.
Okay, so E1 was what you just said, that was 1-1-1.
Mhm.
You also tested E3.
Yes, which was 1-1-2.
And what was the weight on that one?
That weight was 0.946 grams.
Now, getting back to how you actually identify them, do you conduct a presumptive test on this evidence?
Yes.
And what is the purpose of a presumptive test?
The presumptive test is done in order to presumptively identify, to lead the analysis in a certain direction, to say what kind of substance it is, if it's acid, base, to kind of entail what is the next step.
And did 1-1-1 and 1-1-2, what was the presumptive test? What did that show for those items?
So the presumptive tests for those items indicated methamphetamine.
And after the presumptive test, you next conduct a scientific analysis.
Yes, I do.
And what kind of analysis do you perform?
I would perform a confirmatory test known as gas chromatography mass spectrometry.
And after you perform that test, what were the results of that test?
That result on both items indicated methamphetamine.
And after both the presumptive test and the second test, I'm not even going to attempt to say it. After the second test, what comes next in your analysis?
So after that, I would look at the data that I've gathered from the tests and see what it says, compare all 3 to see if they have the same result. And in this case, they did, and I would write a report and release the report into the Bexar County system.
And is methamphetamine a controlled substance?
Yes.
And you said the weights of those, again, can you repeat what the weights were?
So the first weight is 3.676 grams, and the second one is 0.946 grams.
And when we add the total of both of those, is that over 4 grams?
Yes.
And when you conduct this, does this weight include any adulterants or dilutants?
The weight taken, the net weight, is what is within the bag, only within the bag, not the actual bag itself or anything. We do not take out any, we just extract at the lab what is in the thing. So we don't test for adulterants and dilutants.
And that's standard practice at the lab?
Yes, that's standard practice at our lab and standard practice across forensic science labs.
And just so we know exactly what would be an adulterant or a dilutant?
An adulterant or dilutant might commonly be known as a cutting agent, something to put into a substance to make it less pure. So caffeine is often put into something as well to be a dilutant.
And apart from any amount you would have taken to do your testing, did you alter or change the contents of the State's Exhibit 7 in the bags contained within State's Exhibit number 7?
No.
At this time, the state would offer State's Exhibit number 7 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, State's Exhibit number 7 is admitted without objection.
And Ms. Migliori, did you, after your analysis, did you also make a report of this finding?
Yes, I did.
And may I approach the witness, Judge?
Yes.
Ms. Migliori, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 8.
Okay.
You recognize that?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize it to be?
I see a copy of my report.
And did you make this report at or near the time that you conducted your analysis?
Yes,
And are you a custodian of records for the Bexar County Crime Lab?
yes, I am.
And is State's Exhibit number 8 a true and accurate copy of the report that you reflected, or the report that you created reflecting your findings?
Yes,
And at this time, the state would also offer State's Exhibit number 8 into evidence.
No objection.
All right, State's Exhibit number 8 is admitted without objection.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, defense.
I just got maybe one, maybe two. It depends on how you answer it. Ms. Migliori, when you're weighing that meth, you separated them out, right? So I guess what I'm asking is this: they came from two different places, or?
so if I can read from my report word for word. So the first item, the first thing of meth was in one Ziploc bag containing one tied plastic bag containing a crystalline substance. So the second item, though, was separated by someone, not me, was in a separate envelope containing one Ziploc bag containing a crystalline substance. There was two separate items.
Two separate items,
Mhm.
okay, and I guess item E1
Mhm.
was 3.67 grams, a silly question, but that's less than 4 grams, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then item E3 was 0.946, which is less than a gram, correct?
Mhm.
So the only way you get to over 4 grams is if you combined those two bags together.
Yes.
Separately, though, they're in their own weights.
They are separate items. Yes.
And again, you have no idea where they were found, how were they found?
I can only testify as to what I found in the laboratory, what was given to me.
That's for the judge.
Any further questions?
No, ma'am.
Is this witness excused or subject to recall?
From the state, yes, ma'am.
She's
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state of the defense.
Thank you.
And then, then I think you need to sign documents. She just needs to have documents signed over.
Okay.
Thank you. And state, is this your last witness?
Yes, Judge.
All right, so state you rest.
Stateless.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, what will happen is that we're going to start tomorrow. And I'm going to have you all come in tomorrow at 9:45 a.m. because I just have a couple of matters to take up early in the morning. So we'll take those matters up. Again, even though it's Friday, we will not have any jurors coming in. So there'll be less people in the garage. But remember, still, everybody who works in this building parks at that one garage. So probably if you're here by 8:45, you would probably have a space available. And again, you can always bring things to place in the refrigerator, bring your breakfast with you back in the jury room. You've heard some evidence in this case. You're not allowed to start deliberating in your head or deliberating with each other or talking it out with anyone. You're not allowed to do any investigation in this case. If you see anything on social media, you're to ignore it. Everything that you need to know about this case is to come from inside the courtroom. Does everyone understand?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Everyone, please rise for the jurors. All right, Mr. Porter? If you want, since we're gonna be starting later in the morning, we can, if you're here